Taming the High Cost of College, Episode 62.
You have kids, they grow up, and before you know it, it's time to plan for college.
Where do you start?
How much is it going to cost?
Will you qualify for financial aid?
Should you be looking into scholarships?
When will you be able to retire?
What about student loans?
The list of questions is never ending. The good news is, all the answers are right here. Welcome to the Taming the High Cost of College podcast. Here is your host, certified financial planner, Brad Baldridge.
Hello, and welcome to Taming the High Cost of College. I'm your host, Brad Baldridge. Today we have an interview with Jean Burk. She is the creator of College Prep Genius, which is a curriculum that helps students prep for the PSAT and the SAT, and she's going to provide a lot of her great wisdom on the testing. But before we jump into that, just a quick reminder, show notes are available at our website at tamingthehighcostofcollege/62. You're also welcome to leave comments and questions at our website. All right, let's go ahead and jump into the interview. All right, today I'm sitting down with Jean Burk. She is the founder of College Prep Genius. Welcome, Jean.
Hey, Brad. Thanks for having me.
It's great for you to be here. So College Prep Genius deals a lot with test planning, so we're going to dive into that. But before we get involved in that, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to be doing what you do?
Absolutely. Well, I was a homeschooling mom. About 13 years ago, my son Josh was in ninth grade, and we literally had no money for college. With homeschooling, you tend to be one income. And we did always want our kids to go to school, but, we just had absolutely no money. And I happened to be in my friend's kitchen one morning, and she said to me, "Did you know you can get free college, based on test scores like SATs and PSATs?" And I had never heard of that. And I thought, no, I didn't know that. And I thought, well, maybe this is a way that we could get some money for my kids. And knowing nothing about these tests, my son Josh was kind of a guinea pig, and we started going through lots of test questions and practicing and, trying to figure out what works and what doesn't work. And it was very helter-skelter, but long story short, he became a National Merit Scholar. And we actually ended up throwing away 7 trash bags full of college offers. So my mailbox for just about a year after the test was filled with offers from full ride to free tuition to free room and board, grad school money, even money to study abroad in other countries. And so then after my daughter got her free college and scholarship offers, my friends wanted to know, okay, what did y'all do? And, I was kind of like, well, a little this, little that, I don't know. And ultimately, I wrote a program called College Prep Genius. And I started teaching kids on how to take the test and showing them that it really was a skill. It wasn't about your IQ, and it wasn't about what you knew. It was really how to take the test. And so I started out of my home and with a few kids, and then I started getting calls from schools in the area, and then people from other cities, and then other states, and now we're in other countries. And so I've been teaching kids on how to ace the tests for 11 years. A lot of kids became National Merit Scholars. We've got kids who've raised their scores 600 points, and even gone to Ivy Leagues for free. So now I'm really blessed. I get to speak at numerous homeschool conventions, schools, libraries. I'm now a Fox News contributor, and I get to do, some TV and radio interviews, and it's been really good. So I feel really blessed. And the most rewarding thing is, when people tell me how, we're kind of in the same boat. They didn't have any money, or their kids' scores were so low, and, it's life-changing. So it's been great. And I'm very fortunate to have learned this information and been able to share it.
All right, well, great. So let's start at the beginning a little bit. Some of our listeners may just be tuning in and kind of new to the game. So can you tell us what the PSAT and the SAT, or the tests that you mentioned, what they are?
Yes.
And why we care about them?
Well, the reason we care about them is because colleges go up on their rankings nationally based on test scores. So the higher the score, the more money you get, because basically you make them look good. And so, if you have a high test score, they're going to roll out that red carpet for you. SAT is used to get into college. It's also used, of course, like I said, for scholarships. The PSAT, and that P does not stand for the word for the word practice. It stands for the word preliminary, and the full name is PSAT/SAT. NMSQT, or National Merit Scholarship Program. And what this test is, the PSAT counts for scholarships in the junior year. So I'm a big believer in parents having their kids take both. They're both equally important. They have different functions, but they're equally important. And if you start your kids early, let's say freshman and sophomore year on the PSAT, before it counts in the junior year, it gets the students time to get familiar with the test, be able to work on their weaknesses, puts time on their side. And it's ultimately going to help them on the SAT because there's only a couple small differences between both tests. So both are important, and you definitely want to start early.
Right. So what does that mean? When in the high school career do these tests happen?
Well, the SAT is offered 7 times a year, October all the way through June. The PSAT is only offered once a year, which is in October, the third week of October. But there are no age limits. So, you can start your kids early. I mean, I teach a lot of 6th and 7th graders on how to ace the test. And so if you can get your kids even earlier, the scores don't have to be sent anywhere. It's called score choice. So start your kids. It's so important. The average student starts taking tests in spring of their junior year. And this is what a lot of counselors, at schools tell them. And I have a lot of friends who are counselors, but I do know that they're so overwhelmed and have so much on their plate. And oftentimes they don't give the right information. But an average junior has, school and homework and part-time job, and they play sports and play piano, and they have friends. And, they're already so maxed out that it's so stressful for them to start so late. So you definitely want to start early. And like I say, there's no time limit or age limit. So, if you can start in middle school, that's great. But at the minimum, I would say at least in 9th grade.
Okay. And then the PSAT, you say, is only offered once?
Yes.
And why is that, or what's the significance of that?
Well, because the PSAT is not used to get into college. It's only used for the National Merit Scholarship Program, which only comes around once a year. So what happens is the third week of October, some schools will give it the PSAT on a Wednesday, some will give it on a Saturday. But you take the test the third week of October. In November, you get your test booklet back. And then in December, you get your scores in the mail. If you're homeschooled, if you use the homeschool code for your state, then the test booklet will come to your home. If you go to like a public or private school, then the booklet goes to the school. So no matter where your kids go to school, you want to make sure you get that booklet, because once the students get that back, you're able to go through it. You can look at how they work the problems. You can assess their weaknesses, and that gives you time to work on them before it counts for the junior year. If you go to the College Board website, it lets you know that you can take it multiple times. But I do recommend taking it at least in 9th grade and in 10th grade. But the junior year is the only year it counts for scholarships.
Okay, so you could practice on 9 and 10, and then junior year is the real deal.
It's the real deal.
Okay. You mentioned that you were able to work with your kids and able to get their scores up. What types of things are they doing, and how much work is involved in that? And tell us a little bit about how that works.
Well, for my kids, kids are glad they didn't live in my home, because we didn't know what we were doing. I mean, I tried a lot of different stuff. I went to the store, I bought books at the store, I got some program online. I did we personally went through lots of test questions. Sometimes I'd go through an entire book I bought at the store, and I'd only find one thing that would work out of it. So when I put my program together 11 years ago, I took the best of everything that worked. And even after that, I continued to learn more stuff and put together. So now my program is kind of in a neat little package to where what I do is I teach kids that this is a logic test. The SAT, the PSAT, the ACT, they're not about what you know. They're not about your IQ. They're not about, how smart you are. I mean, I've got valedictorians in my class or top 10% of my class that bomb, the tests all the time. I teach them that this is really a critical thinking test. And these questions are purposely designed to trick the kids. And the wrong answers are very appealing. So it's really easy to fall for the wrong answer, and it has nothing to do with how smart you are. It's the way the questions are designed. So I teach you how to read the question very carefully with a critical eye to find out what it's really asking, and then how to eliminate the wrong answers first. The biggest problem that a lot of students have, especially smart kids, is they tend to second guess themselves or overthink the question. So they'll read the question and then they'll read the answer choices and find the one that looks good. And that's completely the wrong way you do it. You read the question and you eliminate the trick answers first, and that ultimately leaves you with the one right answer.
Okay. So if I'm going to do this prep or with my student, how much time or should we be blocking, and how does this fit into their schedule, so to speak?
It all depends on their grade. My program is 12 lessons, about 45 to 50 minutes. So, a lot of co-ops and a lot of schools will use it, and they'll do one lesson a week, and they'll do it over semester time, and then the kids spend the rest of the week working on homework to reinforce what they learn. If you've got a junior or even a senior, and you got a short amount of time, you could do the whole program in a week. I teach the whole thing in 2 days, at like a boot camp. But so it's not extremely time consuming. Now, if you've got a younger student, you could start early and take one lesson, and you could work over 2 or 3 weeks and work on that one area to solidify that information so that you can learn to apply it appropriately. So it really depends on your student. I tell students, at least start 3 months before you're going to take a test, because you're only going to retain a small percentage of what you hear the first time. So you really want to go back and hear it again and again to, really internalize the strategies. I've had kids go up 300 points in a week, but, that's not necessarily the norm. Most of us really need time to go back over it. So it really depends on the age of your student.
Okay. Now, I've had parents come to me and say things like, well, my little Johnny's just not a good test taker. Does really well. The grades are strong. But when it comes time to those high pressure tests, they just fold and it doesn't work out.
Yes. Yes.
What do you have to say about that?
Oh, I hear that hundreds of times a week. We get phone calls, we get emails. I speak at conventions and I hear the same thing. And here's the bottom line. There are some students who are very naturally, logically minded. So they tend to do very well naturally because it's kind of intuitive to them. But then you've got your other kids who are just as smart, but they tend to not be logically minded. And logic, by the way, is something that anybody can learn. Test taking is a skill. It's like learning to play the piano, learning to play golf. It's something that can be learned. And the reason why these students, I get these top 10% of the kids in my class all the time that are just like that, 4.5s, honor students, AP students, yet they can't pass the test. And the reason why is because they're approaching it like a normal test, like at school. And let's say they're good in math, but they tend to have the lowest math score on the SAT because they tend to spend several minutes working the entire problem out. And that's what you do in math class, but you only get about a minute per question. So there's no way that you can do well when you spend 3 minutes on a math problem because you're going to run out of time. The cool thing is when the College Board writes this test, it costs them about $625,000 just to create one test. And when they create a question, they make sure there's the long, normal way, but they also make sure there's a very fast way to work out every problem. So the cool thing about test taking is every question can be answered in 30 seconds or less. So once the students learn that, especially the ones that aren't good test takers, the confidence level is so amazing on these students. And they tell me all the time, wow, I'm so excited. Now I know why I bombed the test. I was doing it all the wrong way. So yes, this is what happens. You're under pressure. You've got about a minute, and it's a very important test. And yes, there's definitely a lot of anxiety. But again, students can learn how to ace this test because they are learnable tests.
Okay. And then there's also the ACT test out there. What is that about, and how are they different?
The ACT is created by the American College Test. It's another test. Both SAT and ACT are used for the same thing. They're both used to get into college. They are both used to get scholarships. You hear a lot of people say, well, the ACT is more about what you know, and it's more about your knowledge and all. I think that's been a myth that's been perpetrated for a long time. A lot of money's been spent to perpetrate that mentality, so that kids who think, well, I'm not a good test taker on the SAT, they'll take the ACT. Well, there's what's called the 1/3 rule. About 1/3 students do a little better on the ACT, about 1/3 do a little bit better on the SAT, and about 1/3 do about the same. Well, and the reason why that is because the way the tests are formatted. Both of them are standardized tests, which means they're objective. There's one right answer. There's the rest are wrong. And when anytime a company writes a standardized test, no matter which one it is, you have to follow the same patterns every single time. So whether you're writing an SAT or ACT, you still have the same patterns, which means they can be figured out because they're simply standardized. So the ACT is right now currently 4 very long sections, anywhere from 45 to over an hour long. The SAT is 10 short sections, which is about 25 minutes. Now, when the SAT changes next year, it's actually going to more the formatting of the ACT. But bottom line is test taking strategies work on both tests because, again, they're both standardized tests. So many of my students have gotten perfect scores on their ACT. And 100% of every college takes either one. So it really makes no difference whether you take the SAT or the ACT. Every college will take either one. Now, if they do prefer one over the other, they will convert the score. So, for example, a 1300 on the SAT math and critical reading section is the same as a 29 on the ACT, or vice versa.
Okay. So that means you can take whichever test you want. So then how do you figure out which one you want to take? Or should you be taking both or just one? Or
Absolutely. No, try them both. Both the College Board and the American College Test have a free downloadable test on their website. I definitely recommend that students download them, take both of them. They will score them for you. Take them on different days, though, because they're both very long tests. And get the feel for which one may be better for you. As the SAT changes next year to a very similar formatting of the ACT, they're going to be extremely similar. Right now, they're about 95% the same test as it is, but next year they're going to be just about the same. So again, try them both and see which one you're comfortable with. You can find I got one in my book, but you can go online and you can find the conversion chart for, just put SAT versus ACT conversion chart, and it'll show you which scores which.
Right. Okay. So if I'm a parent of a really strong student, are there things that I should be aware of that maybe I'm not getting from my high school, or if I'm homeschooled, then maybe I don't even have a resource to help with the test planning?
Absolutely. I highly recommend that you incorporate some kind of logic into your school, whether you're at public, private, or homeschool. Logic games, logic puzzles. These tests are all logic based. And anybody can train their mind to think logically. So whether you're doing a critical thinking program or you're, learning to do some kind of puzzles or whatever, it's really, really important because that's going to really help. And the great thing, one of the things that was sort of the icing on the cake for my family, besides getting free college, which was amazing, but it was that once my kids learned how to take these tests, we realized that it applied to so many other tests. So my daughter, while she was, working on the SAT, realized, hey, Mom, did you know that this information works on AP tests? Because she was in some AP classes, which made perfect sense because the College Board makes AP. It works on the subject tests by the College Board. Ultimately, my daughter got free grad school because the GRE is also made by the College Board. Ultimately, my son got a lot of free law school because the LSAT is another logic test. I've had kids get free med school because obviously the MCAT is not about medicine because you don't know anything about medicine. That's why you go into med school. So because that standardized tests in general are going to be based on thinking and your logic skills, that's what you need to be putting into your daily life. And it could pay off big time.
Okay. And then, so do you have any ideas of where we could, when you say logic skills, I guess other than Googling logic skills, I don't know how I would find that. Is there any ideas on
sure.
we would do for that?
Sure. One of the companies, as a homeschooling mom, I'm a featured speaker at numerous homeschool conventions. And, I get to meet a lot of companies, and I'm sure there's many, many out there. But, the Critical Thinking Company is one that I'm familiar with. That they have a lot of great products. A new one, RX Learning, that I just was familiar with in one of the conventions that I was at a few months ago. I think if you just Google anything logic, something that makes your kids think, that would be great. I mean, there's even video games now for the younger kids who like to participate and play those. So something that just really gets them to not take something at face value. I ask whenever I'm speaking or whenever I am, in a classroom, I ask my kids, I'll say something like, some months have 31 days and some have 30. How many have 28? So, Brad, what would be your answer?
One sometimes.
All of them. They all have 28 days. That is a logic question. Your mind thought I asked you how many only have 28. So February popped in your mind, but actually all of them do. And so, and I give kids 2 or 3 logic questions, and once they see that, they go, "Oh my gosh, you're right." So it's a matter of getting them to think it through and not just jump on the trick answer.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I'm still thinking about that going, yeah, the way you asked the question, though, I guess
I said, yeah, how many of them have 28 days? See, I didn't say how many of them only have 28 days.
Right. And you didn't say how many of them have at least 28 days either.
Nope, I didn't. But even if I said how many of them have 28, they all do.
Okay. Well, yeah, that seems a little bit tricky. And I guess maybe that's the point of.
Exactly. Exactly.
All right. So let's wrap things up with some additional ideas. Do you have any quick tips that parents can use to kind of help their students through the testing process or anything else that has to do with the college process?
I do. Ideally, start early. We have this thing called time. And when you put time on your side, it can ultimately pay off big time, because what happens is colleges don't necessarily look at your child's GPA, believe it or not. And not that I'm against having a good GPA, but a 4.0 at one high school is not the same 4.0 at another high school. Every school weighs and calculates their scores differently. So the only fair way that a college can compare a homeschool student versus a public school or private school student is a test like an SAT, because it levels the playing field. So the scholarship money is unbelievable that you can get out there. So I recommend for parents, because a lot of them will say to me, well, this is not on my radar, it's too early, or I don't want to put the kind of stress on my young student. Well, stress is when you put it on your junior and they don't have time to figure these things out. There's a great website called capex.com, CAPPEX. A lot of people will tell me, we got plenty of time. And I always say, listen, go to the SAT, go to the ACT websites. If you haven't taken a test, download a free one, get your score, and then go to capex.com, and you can actually plug in information, let's say your child's test score. And, you might have 2 or 3 colleges in mind. Well, put that in there, and it will show you how your student compares to everyone else that has that same criterion. So let's say you might say, well, I've got these 3 colleges, and, it'll show you how many kids were accepted or denied with that same test score. And you might find that your child is 400 points below just getting into that school. And it doesn't even count scholarship money, because the higher score, of course, the more money you get. So if your kid is 400 points below just getting into the school of their choice, why in the world would you wait till you're a junior? You could start working on that right now.
Right. As I'm working with families, I often talk about that, because one of the decisions that you need to make is, are you going to do what it takes to get the scores that you need, or are you going to change your school list to match whatever scores you happen to have?
I like that. I like that.
And either one is okay, but you need enough time to do one or the other. So you need to have a place to start.
And not only that, too, you don't have a high enough score, you're going to be strapped with tons of debt. We've got 66% of college graduates leaving school with, like $30,000 debt. And sometimes some of this debt takes 20 years to pay off. So you have to kind of say, do I want to pay now or do I want to pay later, and literally pay big time? The other thing I would say, too, is there's so many different ways to get free college. And I have an ebook called 15 Secrets to Free College. And it's on my website at collegeprepgenius.com. Normally it's $9.95, but your listeners, if they'll go on there and they use the code TAME, since you're talking about taming the cost of college, TAME, put that code in under 15 secrets, and they can get that absolutely free. So it's going to talk about how you can go to an Ivy League for free. It's going to talk about a program where you can eat your way to free college. And so it's got a lot of good resources in it. And then the last thing I would say to the parents is you can do it. Literally, you can do it. I mean, we were nobodies and we got free college. And, I've been teaching people how to do it for 11 years. They can do it too. I want people to realize that you don't have to be strapped with loans and debts or like, as you say, changing your college list. It's something that as a family, if you make it a priority, and it really does come down to priority because, kids are spending 8 hours a day on some kind of digital, whether it's texting or computers or video games or whatever, there's a time in the day to learn this, and it doesn't take a long time, just a few minutes a day over a period of time. No need to cram, but it can be done. And I just want to encourage families that, it definitely can happen to them because it certainly happened to us.
All right. Well, great. So why don't you tell us again your website and how else people can get a hold of you if they want to learn more about what you offer or they just want to get in contact with you?
My website is collegeprepgenius.com. You can email us at info at collegeprepgenius.com. Or if you want to call our office, we are on Central Time, 817-282-7737. I've got a lot of frequently asked questions on my website that you're welcome to, lots of video testimonials, but anything that you want to know about the test prep, SAT, PSAT, ACT, about the new upcoming SAT, don't fear it. It's pretty much the same thing. They've repackaged it to look more like an ACT, but it's still basically a standardized test with the same recurring patterns. So, which can basically be figured out just like it can be now. So, yes, feel free to contact us. We would love to hear from you.
All right. Well, thank you very much. That was a lot of great information. I will put all this information in the show notes, by the way, so you can get it at Taming the High Cost of College as well. Thanks, Jean, for all the great information, and we'll stay in touch.
Thanks, Brad.
All right, that was a great interview with Jean. Hopefully you learned a ton about the SAT and how to plan and prepare. As always, we have show notes at Taming the High Cost of College. You can go there to get all the links for the stuff you just learned about. That's all we have for today, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Taming the High Cost of College podcast. Now it's time for you to take action. Head to tamingthehighcostofcollege.com for show notes, bonus content, and to leave feedback for Brad. The next step on your college journey starts now.
Brad Baldridge is a registered representative of Cambridge Investment Research and an investment advisor representative of Cambridge Investment Research Advisors, a registered investment advisor. Securities are offered through Cambridge Investment Research Incorporated, a broker-dealer and member of FINRA and SIPC. Brad owns two companies, Baldridge Wealth Management and Baldridge College Solutions. The Baldridge companies are not affiliated with Cambridge Investment Research.